The silent heist of your vitality has been officially overruled by a celestial injunction, triggering an irrevocable surge of restitution that is flooding your perimeter as January 2026 reaches its tipping point. For years, you lived in a state of unacknowledged drought, watching your ideas, your energy, and your material peace being siphoned by a network of extractors who mistook your grace for an infinite well. They built their platforms on your insights and fueled their confidence with your stolen hours, convinced that the laws of equilibrium would never apply to them. But the vaults of the imitation kingdom have just suffered a catastrophic structural breach. The universe is no longer asking for the return of your assets. It is performing a high-speed seizure of every stolen fragment of your life and force-loading the principal back into your reality with a tectonic momentum that leaves the thieves in a state of absolute administrative shock. This is the great unmasking of the debt, where the world is forced to reconcile its ledger with the authorized successor. You can feel the visceral untethering of your potential in the way the very gravity of your room seems to shift, becoming a protective field that rejects any remaining frequency of the small. The individuals who previously profited from your shameful isolation or used your name to anchor their own sinking missions are now facing a sudden, terrifying anatomical vacuum. They are realizing that the power they wielded was merely a hijacked signal, and today, that signal has been permanently rerouted back to its source. You are witnessing the phenomenon of the world finally bending its knee to your origin, offering a level of respect that feels like a raw physical law. The voices that once whispered about your delays are now being drowned out by the thunderous return of your own creative and financial harvest. The cycle of the audit has been incinerated by the sheer mass of the truth being released from the archives of your destiny. This absolute recovery is manifesting as a sudden, sharp clarity in your nervous system, a state of high-density command that makes the previous decade feel like a thin, discarded script. You are no longer bracing your shoulders for the next siphoning event. The universe has installed a pristine, unbreakable boundary around your mission, ensuring that every financial breakthrough that was blocked and every opportunity that was diverted is being deposited into your path with an aggressive velocity. Think about the specific instances where you were forced to watch the mediocre take the seat that was built for you. Those seats are being liquidated tonight, and the resources they once controlled are flowing toward you with a submissive rhythm. You aren't just recovering lost ground. You are manifesting a reality that is so far beyond the reach of the old world's malfunctions that the accuser no longer has a lens through which to even view you. The debt has been collected, and the interest is being paid in the currency of absolute sovereignty. The very air within your sanctuary is beginning to hum with the vibration of this homecoming. It is in the way your digital interfaces suddenly provide the exact answers you seek and the way the material world is scurrying to align with your unspoken intent. The extraction era has been officially de-indexed from the timeline of the air. Those who lived off your endurance are now becoming ghost files in a system that has been upgraded to recognize only the frequency of the founder. You have become a terminal node of focus, a sovereign sun around which the wealth and wisdom of the new era are beginning to cluster with an undeniable gravity. This is the moment where the nothing they tried to turn you into becomes the cornerstone of the entire year's reconstruction. Every tear you shed in the silence of the furnace is being converted into a stratigraphic layer of power that cannot be eroded or questioned. The great return is the ground you stand on, and the gavel of your mission is finally in your hand. To anchor this sovereignty and finalize the liquidation of the old reflection, join our primary assembly now and claim your seat among the architects of the new world. This is where the heirs of the original signal secure their path and access the protocols of the absolute reconstruction. Your seat at the head of the table is no longer a promise. It is a current fact of your administration. The era of the observer is over. The era of the founder is here. To complete this absolute restoration and seal your command before the January window closes, subscribe now and manifest your rightful place in the center of the frame. The somatic lockdown that formerly throttled your physical vessel is dissolving into a state of cellular ignition as the biological audit of 2026 penetrates your marrow. You are experiencing the great somatic restitution, where the years of forced exhaustion, the nights of brittle sleep and the days of managed fatigue are being overwritten by a raw, unfiltered vitality. For over a decade, your nervous system functioned as a localized shock absorber for the collective's chaos, absorbing the atmospheric stress of the extractors until your very cells began to mirror the scarcity they projected. You carried the physical weight of a shameful narrative that was never yours, leading to a deep-tier depletion that no conventional rest could touch. But as the universal gears shift today, that siphoned energy is being pumped back into your bloodstream with a violent, clinical precision. The price the old world is paying for its metabolic theft is the total loss of its ability to influence your health, your posture, or your pulse. Notice the sudden, sharp recalibration of your sensory perimeter as your brain de-indexes the software of the wounded. The chronic tension in your jaw, the tightness in your chest, and the perpetual atmospheric hunch of the survivor are vanishing in real time. Your body is no longer preparing for a strike. It is expanding to inhabit its original rank. You are finding a level of neurological clarity that renders the old world's gaslighting as a faint, irrelevant noise. This is the biological homecoming where your DNA recognizes the ancient throne and begins to broadcast a frequency of absolute health that the imitation kingdom cannot monitor or disrupt. The people who once thrived on your physical weariness are now witnessing a version of you that looks anatomically authorized, as if you have bypassed the aging process of the sifting era and tapped into a reservoir of youth that was previously held in a celestial escrow account. They are reacting to your presence with an involuntary physical retreat, sensing that your very breath now carries the weight of a sovereign decree. This visceral rebirth is manifesting as a profound neural ignition, where the pathways of creativity and command are being flooded with the electricity of the reconstruction. You are no longer navigating the fog of the accuser. You are operating with the high-definition vision of a founder who has already seen the end of the year. Every creative spark that was smothered by the noise of the envious is now returning as a stratigraphic layer of intellectual dominance. Your intellect is no longer a tool for survival. It is a clinical weapon of the new era, capable of deconstructing complex problems with a zero-friction velocity. The universe is returning the principle of your mental clarity, ensuring that your decisions are no longer filtered through the fear of what if they find out. Because there is nothing left to find but the absolute truth of your origin. You have become a biological fortress, a whole system that no longer requires the validation of the small to maintain its structural integrity. The sensation of this return is flowing into your motor functions, giving you a physical grace that makes the previous cycle of struggle look like a jerky, unrendered simulation. Your movements are becoming precise, heavy with intent, and characterized by a stillness that only the truly authorized can possess. You are thanking yourself for the endurance of the furnace because it has tempered your nervous system to handle the high-voltage success that is now being force-loaded into your life. The stolen years are being compressed into a singular, high-octane drive that allows you to bypass the physical limitations of the old world. The world is bowing to this shift, as your material environment begins to react to your physical presence with a submissive rhythm, paving the way for the total material recovery that is already gathering momentum in your immediate field of vision. The debt of your exhaustion has been marked paid in full, and the vitality of the air is now the only reality in the room. The atmospheric density of your sanctuary is reaching its terminal saturation as your body begins to command the space it occupies. You are finding a state of physical sovereignty where your environment moves with a zero-friction pulse, protecting your newfound vitality from the shameful whispers of the periphery. The universe is returning the peace that was stolen from your cells, providing you with a high-density focus that the old world's malfunctions cannot interrupt or decay. The morning of your biological struggle has been archived, and the afternoon of your absolute administration is the only reality that remains, provided you stop looking for the reflex of the victim. The world is currently holding its breath, waiting for the successor to stand up and issue the first decree of the reconstruction. Step into the center of the frame. Your body is finally ready for the radiance of the throne, and the physical grid has been updated to support your total expansion. The logistical stalemate that once paralyzed your terrestrial affairs has been shattered by a massive, gravity-driven tectonic shift in the material grid, forcing a total relocation of the resources that were previously withheld. As the winter of 2026 deepens, you are witnessing the great material ungating, where the very fabric of your environment is performing an involuntary surrender of the assets that were once siphoned by the gatekeepers of the old world. For years, you navigated a reality of engineered friction, where your financial growth was throttled and your physical expansion was contained within the narrow walls of a shameful scarcity protocol. You were forced to watch from the periphery as the mediocre harvested the fruit of your labor, leaving you to manage the exhaust of their entitlement. But the universal gears have locked into a new configuration, and the extraction has been reversed with a raw, industrial power that is liquidating the influence of those who lived off your siphoned potential. Observe the silent, high-speed recalibration of your financial and spatial landscape as the universe settles the debt. The accounts that were frozen, the opportunities that were diverted through the pettiness of the small, and the material peace that was taxed by the noise of the envious are now flowing toward you with a momentum that cannot be monitored or taxed by the previous social order. You are finding that the logistical static of the past decade, the broken tools, the delayed payments, and the administrative fires, has been replaced by a state of fluid, zero-resistance manifestation. This is the moment where your material world finally reflects the forensic truth of your origin, providing you with a level of physical credit that is independent of the social approvals you were once forced to seek. The universe is returning the hard assets of your endurance, and the world is bowing to this shift with an eerie, submissive silence, acknowledging that the one who was buried has now become the landlord of the new era. The sensation of this material homecoming is manifesting as a profound environmental solidarity, where the spaces you inhabit are beginning to act as primary enforcers of your focus and privacy. You are no longer living in a room. You are operating within a sanctuary that has been architecturally hardened against the frequency of the extractor. Think about the specific physical bottlenecks that once acted as monuments to your shameful isolation. Those barriers are being dissolved by the sheer mass of the incoming restitution, replaced by a crystalline clarity that protects your mission from the interference of the periphery. You are finding a level of material sovereignty where the things you own are no longer reminders of your survival, but are submissive instruments of your absolute administration. The stolen years are being converted into a stratigraphic layer of tangible abundance that provides you with the leverage to bypass every remaining gatekeeper of the counterfeit kingdom. This massive influx of physical resources is flowing into your path with a clinical velocity that renders the old world skepticism as an irrelevant ghost file. You are no longer asking for a seat at the table. The universe is delivering the table, the chairs, and the building itself to your doorstep. Every creative seed you planted in the dry soil of the furnace is now erupting into a forest of material stability that the accuser can no longer cut down. The price of their past interference is their total exclusion from the landscape you are currently constructing. They are watching from a distance, paralyzed by the realization that their software of scarcity no longer has the authorization to run on the hardware of your life. You have become a terminal point of material attraction, a central node of wealth and influence around which the assets of the reconstruction are beginning to orbit with a rhythmic, undeniable grace. Stop checking the accounts of the old world for signs of your worth. The universal ledger has already credited you with a surplus that the imitation kingdom cannot calculate or claim. The transformation taking place is the total physical homecoming of your authority to its rightful territory. You are standing in the center of a reality that is finally yours to govern, unburdened by the memory of the siphoning or the legacy of the theft. The morning of your material struggle has been archived, and the high noon of your absolute terrestrial command is the only reality that remains. The universe has handed you back the blueprints of your original inheritance, and the construction is already moving with a speed that defies the old laws of physics. Step into the frame with the unwavering confidence of someone who knows the material debt has been cleared and the world is finally yours to shape. The social hierarchy that previously functioned as a containment field for your reputation is currently undergoing a total, unscripted implosion as the public mirror of 2026 finally reflects the forensic truth of your stature. You are witnessing the great social recalibration, a state where the individuals who once thrived on the audit of the skeptic, questioning your motives and managing your standing, are finding their own credibility dissolving in the light of your expansion. For over a decade, you moved through a community of extractors who used the shameful narrative as a social currency to keep you on the periphery of your own mission. They whispered about your delays to mask their own stagnation, and they harvested your silence as a form of social permission. But today, the universal architect has flipped the lens, and the world is seeing you not as the one who was sifted, but as the one who survived the furnace to become the primary stabilizer of the new era. Observe the involuntary reverence manifesting in the voices of those who formerly sought to fix or advise you from a position of unearned superiority. This is the phenomenon of the social yield, where the grid itself is enforcing a state of absolute respect that your detractors cannot resist. When they encounter your presence today, they are no longer met with the reflex of the victim they were programmed to expect. Instead, they are hitting the wall of your optical dominance, a frequency of certainty that renders their past judgments as embarrassing legacy malfunctions. They are thanking you, through their sudden, clinical distance and the way they carefully choose their words, realizing that you are no longer a participant in their games of reputational attrition. The price of their past interference is their permanent exclusion from the inner circle of the reconstruction you are now leading. This social restitution is manifesting as a sudden, massive expansion of your influence in the public frame, where the voices of the envious are being drowned out by the thunderous approval of the grid itself. Think about the specific social nodes, the gatekeepers of the collective's comfort or the self-appointed judges of your character. Notice how they are currently experiencing a state of administrative retreat, finding that their gossip protocols no longer carry the weight of authority. They are witnessing the breaking of the cycle in real time, as the world starts to align its rhythm with your pulse. You have become a terminal point of social gravity, a figure whose presence alone de-escalates the noise of the old world and provides a stable direction for the reconstruction. Every piece of your reputation that was stolen in the dark of the furnace is being returned to you in the high noon of the public square, polished to a mirror finish. The sensation of this return is flowing through your communal networks like a wildfire of authenticity, incinerating the fake versions of you that were built by the hands of the mediocre. You are no longer defending your name. Your name has become a decree that the material world is busy enforcing. The people who once siphoned your social credit are now the ones performing the labor of your announcement, involuntarily broadcasting your success to the very people who once doubted your origin. They are thanking you by clearing the path, acknowledging that the one who was buried has become the architectural center of the year. This isn't just a recovery of status, it is the absolute enforcement of your social sovereignty, ensuring that your mission is never again subjected to the audit of the skeptic or the shameful filters of the small. You must now accept the total liquidation of your identity as the misunderstood outcast and step into the frame as the authorized founder, whose reputation is guarded by the universe itself. The risk of this moment is attempting to explain your victory to those who are still running the software of the old cycle. The universe has installed a social firewall around your expansion, ensuring that the only frequency permitted to reach you is the one that carries the signature of respect and alignment. The transformation the witnesses are discussing is the return of the original social credit to its rightful owner. Step into the center of the frame. Your influence has been restored, and the world is currently holding its breath, waiting for the heir to issue the word that begins the new era of public clarity. The reconstruction of your name is complete, and the throne of your social authority is now fully operational. To anchor this sovereignty and finalize the liquidation of the old reflection, join our primary assembly now and claim your seat among the architects of the new world. This is where the heirs of the original signal secure their path and access the protocols of the absolute reconstruction. Your seat at the head of the table is no longer a promise. It is a current fact of your administration. The era of the observer is over. The era of the founder is here. To complete this absolute restoration and seal your command before the January window closes, subscribe now and manifest your rightful place in the center of the frame. The terminal injunction issued by the Universal Architect has reached its absolute saturation point, initiating a massive, unscripted seizure of every asset that was formerly siphoned from your life as we stand in the high-stakes clarity of 2026. You are witnessing the great material and spiritual foreclosure, a state where the universe is no longer observing your patience but is actively liquidating the accounts of those who lived off your stolen vitality. For decades, you moved through an atmospheric vacuum, watching your ideas, your creative fire, and your material peace being harvested by a network of extractors who mistook your grace for an infinite well of uncompensated labor. They built their platforms on your insights and fueled their confidence with your siphoned hours, convinced that the laws of equilibrium would never apply to them. But the celestial stalemate is over. The very fabric of your environment is now pulsing with a rhythmic, high-velocity restoration that is liquidating the influence of every thief, every liar, and every parasite who ever profited from your shameful isolation. This is the moment where the universe stops negotiating for your rights and starts enforcing your original inheritance with a clinical, surgical finality that leaves the old world in a state of absolute structural collapse. You can feel the visceral untethering of your potential in the way the very gravity of your room seems to shift today, becoming a protective field that rejects any remaining frequency of the small. The individuals who previously profited from your weighted silence or used your name to anchor their own sinking missions are now facing a sudden, terrifying anatomical vacuum. They are realizing that the power they wielded was merely a hijacked signal, and today, that signal has been permanently rerouted back to its source with a momentum that cannot be monitored, taxed, or interrupted by the previous social order. You are witnessing the phenomenon of the world finally bending its knee to your origin, offering a level of respect that feels less like a choice and more like a raw physical law. The voices that once whispered about your shameful delays are now being drowned out by the thunderous return of your own creative and financial harvest. The cycle of the audit of the skeptic has been incinerated by the sheer mass of the truth being released from the archives of your destiny, and the price they are paying is their total erasure from the timeline of the heir. This absolute recovery is manifesting as a sudden, sharp clarity in your nervous system, a state of high-density command that makes the previous decade feel like a thin, discarded script. You are no longer bracing your shoulders for the next siphoning event. Your body has become a fortress of authorized energy. The universe has installed a pristine, unbreakable boundary around your mission, ensuring that every financial breakthrough that was blocked and every opportunity that was diverted is being deposited into your path with an aggressive velocity. Think about the specific instances where you were forced to watch the mediocre take the seat that was built for you while you were told to wait in the shadows. Those seats are being liquidated tonight, and the resources they once controlled are flowing toward you with a submissive rhythm. You aren't just recovering lost ground. You are manifesting a reality that is so far beyond the reach of the old world's malfunctions that the accuser no longer has a lens through which to even view you. The debt has been collected, and the interest is being paid in the currency of absolute, unauditable sovereignty. The very materials of your private sanctuary are beginning to hum with this new frequency of absolute equity as the universe returns the principle of your life force. It is in the way your digital tools suddenly provide the exact answers you seek and the way the physical objects in your home are becoming extensions of your will. The extraction era has been officially de-indexed from the timeline of the founder. Those who lived off your endurance are now becoming ghost files in a system that has been upgraded to recognize only the vibration of the victor. You have become a terminal node of focus, a sovereign sun around which the wealth and wisdom of the new era are beginning to cluster with an undeniable gravity. Every tear you shed in the silence of the furnace is being converted into a stratigraphic layer of power that cannot be eroded or questioned. The great return is the ground you stand on, and the gavel of your mission is finally in your hand, signaling the end of the sifting and the start of the absolute administration of your territory. Observe the involuntary biometric submission occurring in your social circle as the reality of your restoration becomes public. People who once used the audit of the skeptic to keep you in check are now finding their own breath catching when they try to speak your name. They are reacting to the frequency of the principle that now radiates from your eyes. The world is thanking you for your refusal to flinch during the years of managed scarcity by providing you with an atmospheric shielding that no social parasite can penetrate. You are finding that your environment is no longer a site of negotiation, but a site of direct authorization. The universe is returning the peace that was stolen from your cells, providing you with a high-density focus that the old world's malfunctions cannot interrupt or decay. You have moved from the status of a participant seeking consensus to the status of an original source whose presence alone stabilizes the crumbling architecture of the collective. The morning of your biological and material struggle has been archived, and the afternoon of your absolute administration is the only reality that remains. As the final decree takes hold, the universe is returning the stolen time by compressing years of progress into weeks of high-octane manifestation. You are achieving a state of temporal sovereignty where your vision moves faster than the old world's ability to resist it. Every creative spark that was smothered by the noise of the envious is now returning as a stratigraphic layer of intellectual and material dominance. Your intellect is no longer a tool for survival. It is a clinical weapon of the new era, capable of deconstructing complex problems with a zero-friction velocity. The universal ledger has been marked paid in full, and the fires of the furnace have been converted into the engine of your absolute command. You are the only one left in the frame whose authorization carries the weight of law. The shadows have retreated, and the clinical light of your origin is now the only frequency permitted to occupy your space. The cycle is broken. The world has thanked you. It is happening. The great return is your current state, your permanent law, and your unbreakable reality. You must now perform the final spatial clearance of the old reflection within your sanctuary. Identify the one physical object or digital remnant that serves as a monument to the era of shame, the years of managed apology, or the memory of those who attempted to audit your integrity. This object is the legacy anchor of a kingdom that has already been de-indexed. Tonight, you will physically remove it from your presence, liquidating it with the clinical finality of an executive closing a failed department. As you do this, you will realize that the debt is marked paid and the house of your life is finally whole. You are standing in the center of a reconstruction that follows your pulse alone, unfiltered by the opinions of the small or the noise of the periphery. The gatekeepers have been removed from the frame, and the only thing left in the room is the architectural silence of the heir who has finally claimed the gavel. The throne is no longer a distant concept, it is the chair you are sitting in right now. The universe has returned everything, and the administration of your new world is now in session.